What's up, PlayStation Universe, and welcome to Episode 8 of PlayStation Fix. I am Will Robinson, and joining me this week are all of our members of Wake Force. So it's myself, and we've got Senior Editors Adam Byrne.
Hi there.
Kyle Prahl.
Woohoo!
And Ernest Lin.
Hi, Sai. Hello.
Well,
Right.
I like that. I was waiting for what you were gonna say because I'm like, all right, I'm still playing around with my intro. I haven't found my catchphrase yet. I don't like woohoo.
Just to put it out there.
That's a placeholder, TBA.
It is. It's very much. But I have no idea what came after me.
All right. Well, Kyle and Ernest, they just got back from PSX.
X.
They had a lot of fun.
Stream.
A lot of coverage. We did. There were lots of things to talk
That
about.
maybe
That's kind of surprising.
There are a lot of things to talk about, but maybe that should be the name of the event in year 3 going forward. PlayStation Extreme.
PlayStation Extreme. All right, but
I wouldn't go if it was named that.
but Kyle and Ernest, they did a podcast earlier this week that you can find on PSU that talks about their impressions of the show on day 1 and the keynote that took place and all that good stuff. We are not going to be talking about that in this podcast, as you may have seen from the title. What we are talking about is one of the biggest reveals of the show, which was the first gameplay footage of Final Fantasy VII Remake. So,
Yes.
Ernest and Kyle were both in the room when it got shown.
Hyped.
But before we go any further, we must clarify a point. I am a huge Final Fantasy VII fan. Adam says he has it in his top 3. Kyle is also a big fan of Final Fantasy VII as well. Ernest Lin has not played Final Fantasy VII, and therefore we must take a moment to shun him.
Abuse him.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm a big fan of Advent Children.
See you later, Ernest.
What a cute parallel point.
To Senator
You're just making it
Prahl.
worse, Ernest.
Guys, don't worry. I know what happens.
I watched the special features on the DVD that takes me through the whole game, so I know what happens. I know that she dies. It's okay.
Oh, spoiler. Geez.
Yeah, right? Too soon, man.
Yeah, it is too soon, man.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, is
But-
it Eris or is it Aerith?
Aerith.
I say Ares.
Or no, how was
the
it?
European thing? I don't know.
However, how was it written? It was Eris.
It's spelled...
Aerith.
It's Eris in FF7.
Yeah, Eris is how it's spelled. It's supposed to be Aerith.
It's supposed to be Aerith. Did they spell that because of like the
It was
Japanese?
the translation got screwed up in the localization.
probably Japanese.
As was
Yeah.
the thing in the 90s, of course.
Yeah.
Still is the thing, really.
Okay.
So that's the whole deal. But anyway, Final Fantasy VII. If you don't know, like Ernest, because he hasn't experienced it, Final Fantasy VII is Final Fantasy VII is basically one of the most revered JRPGs of all time, and for good reasons. Some people think it's overhyped. That's their opinion. I think it's
people are wrong.
yeah, that's true. I think it's great. I actually just played through it again recently. Adam just picked it up. Did you just bought the version that came out for the remaster, right? Or the PC port?
The first 20 minutes was out, so I'm currently playing through it.
Playing through it again, yeah. So we
Playing
got
on God mode, don't you filthy cheater.
I'm I'm not using it, but I am so annoyed that it's so readily available. Just tapping in R3 and it's just too rare.
Have you done it accidentally? Have you accidentally triggered it?
Yeah, because I use the left analog stick to walk around and stuff, and I ended up. I don't mind hitting L3 to speed up the game if you're grinding a little bit because I want to get all the trophies. So getting Ares' last limit break, you've obviously got to work her up. So I have to kind of grind a bit. So I don't mind doing it that way, but the God mode thing it's a step too far, to be honest. So
Yeah, fair enough. Hey, wait, can we rewind a little bit and just say I think that the way Ernest reacted during E3 this summer must have been kind of fake, right?
That's true.
Having never played the game, were you just responding to the excitement around you and going, "Oh yeah,
dreams can come true."
dreams can come true, man."
Not my dreams, but
I'm sympathetic towards Final Fantasy VII fans, and I understand the context, and like I said, I like Advent Children. And it looks
You're
like
just digging that hole, Ernest. You keep digging it. Cannot dig up.
And I mean, I own the game, so
That makes it worse.
But anyway, so Kyle and Ernest were at PSX, and they got to see the reveal of the new gameplay footage, or the first gameplay footage of the remake at the show. So why don't you guys can go back and forth however you want to do it. What was it like in that room when they first revealed the footage?
Oh man, it was crazy. Although the thing that I thought was funny about it is that the way the live stream came up onto the screen was a distraction from the fact that we hadn't seen Crash Bandicoot yet. Like when Sean Layden walked out with that t-shirt, we were like, all right, it's happening, Crash is real. And then we momentarily forgot about it because the live stream came up, and we're like, are you really talking about FF7 Remake again? That's crazy. So yeah, I mean, that was like, in terms of pure excitement, that was probably, I thought, the highest intensity moment of the show, like being there in the crowd with people. Like it was kind of just, it felt, that was one of the few moments of the show that felt like E3 to me, like that string of game announcements that was totally hype. They even
like teased the crowd because they started it with like captures of like a compilation
like
fan reactions, and then the very beginning part of that gameplay trailer is snippets of it's the snippets of the pre-rendered announcements from E3.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think some people were thinking, oh, it's just going to be like another, maybe just like a sizzle reel, just being like, yeah, it exists, whatever. But then, bam, we got gameplay in engine in game.
Yeah, and I think that was reflected in the way in the way people reacted to that. I mean, it just went to show you that very few people really expected that we were going to get to see gameplay this soon. Because I do seem to remember there was people were pretty much just kind of half cheering the entire time, but there was like an uptick when it flipped to the battle scene and we got to see Cloud in the real-time combat system for the first time. Then it was like, oh! kind of a thing. And and it was just uproarious when it finally got to the end of the video and flashed the logo. So it's funny, like being there in the moment, that was the hypest moment of the conference, I think, on the floor. You know, you had really loud cheers for Nino Kuni, you had a good smattering of applause for some of those lesser-known titles in the middle, but it almost went slightly downhill from there.
Yeah, that's what I was surprised they didn't end with something.
Yeah,
like that.
I think ending on that would have been a nice way to have.
Yeah.
End on like
open with Uncharted 4, end with Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think internally I shared the same sentiment while watching it. I didn't scream while I was watching it at home. But yeah, I mean, that was definitely the high point of the entire show for me, was being able to see that live. I'm assuming Adam is in the similar vein.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I was at the tail end of a party and I was sitting around people and I just looked at my phone and I went onto Reddit and I saw it and I was like, what the hell? Obviously, like you had mentioned, I'd never ever expected gameplay this early on. So to even see it again, I was really taken aback, and it kind of made the whole PSX a lot better, considering I was pretty disappointed by what was, you know, on show beyond that.
Yeah,
it's funny to get caught up in kind of the. I mean, I know we're going to dive into this in a little bit, but I also want to say that like the reaction to that trailer from the crowd, at least, was like universally positive in that moment, and partly because, you know, it's the first time you're seeing it, so you don't even have a chance to like critically react to it.
It's more just stunned that it exists.
Exactly, and in the day's sense, you know, again, we'll get to it, but there's been talk about certain aspects and like whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for the series and how that ruins our nostalgia and stuff like that. But it was just cool for at least a moment to be in that auditorium and just be awash with positivity. You know, there was not a single person there who wasn't just completely stoked to see it. So that's always nice to kind of be, and even during the stream at home too, it's just nice to have that initial moment of peace and bliss before the negative reactions start coming out.
Yeah. Since we're gonna just be talking about Final Fantasy this whole time, we'll start with one of the concerns, or one of the things. Well, it's not even a concern. One of the things that people talk about. Obviously, the game looks amazing. Visually, is just like stunning from what they've shown and what we've seen. But it was kind of an interesting stance, and this is something that Ernest can relate to since he's seen Advent Children. But we got an article saying that was kind of their base mark from the games producer Yoshinori Kitase. He said that they wanted the graphics to be on par with Advent Children on PS4. Which when I first read that, I thought that was kind of weird. Just for that to be their goal.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, in better, he explains it better that it's basically their benchmark. It's not necessarily their goal for visuals. Because,
that's what I would hope.
Because Advent Children came out, I can't even remember.
10 years ago?
Yeah, it was like 10 years ago or something like that. So it's like, it still holds up.
07,
today,
08, I think.
Oh, was it? Jeez.
I think it was, it was like...
I'm going to say 2006.
It's a long time ago.
But anyway,
But I mean, for that to be your goal in terms of visuals is like, well, that's kind of surprising. But basically, yeah, he just wants it to be their kind of benchmark, and I'd say he just wanted it to basically look like Cloud and Tifa and Barrett and all those people just like in action from the movie, but in the game world. So I mean, like, you can't complain about that if that's their base mark or the benchmark for going forward.
Advent Children was 05 at least.
Oh, was that the first time?
10 years
Holy
ago.
crap, that's crazy.
Yeah, God.
You know, Will, you mentioned
10 years.
You mentioned the characters, Will, Barrett, Tifa, and how it feels to see those people in action again, and that is awesome. But I think there's a small part of what made this trailer like real for me. Like, now it's like, oh my God, this is actually a thing. And that was actually seeing like the remade versions of Jesse and Biggs and Wedge. I'm like,
Yeah.
and it's like, it's obvious, like,
because they didn't exist before.
That. Exactly, you know that that's exactly right. Like, you know that they're going to do that if they're remaking the whole game. Everything is going to be up to that standard. But it's almost seeing the side characters for me that was like, oh my God, like, these were such bit part NPCs in the original that only had a few lines of dialogue, and wow, this is real now.
Yeah, it's just insane. It's insane to see. That's what I'm really excited to see, the character models for the other ones, or like how they're gonna. It's like clearly it was more limited because it's been 10 years ago, as we established for Advent Children, is that they didn't, in terms of like the visual effects, or like even like for like FF13 and like the stuff coming out that's on its way, just in terms of the visuals for like the magic and the stuff in those kind of scenes, just to see that in action with the character models intertwined and all that stuff is just, that's so exciting to think about how that could look. And just like, I want to see what like Red 13 looks like. I want to see what Vincent looks like. Yeah, I want to see that. I want to see the golden saucer. I want to see all that. Like, I just can't wait.
I want to see Yuffie.
Microtransactions.
Oh yeah, Yuffie would be interesting to see. I'm guessing she'd be very similar to...
No, not Yuffie. Yuffie.
Yuffie?
Yuffie, purposely mispronounced it.
Yep, I know.
Yep, sure you did.
I just wanted to skip by it. That was my goal. But
yeah, totally. I'm totally with you there. I'd like to see, all the new summon animations. What does Knights of the Round look like? What does Great Gospel look like? What is I can't remember what you remember the snake creature that moves through that little patch of swamp?
Oh yeah.
God,
I don't remember what it's called, but like, just
you
to
get
see
a really awesome attack from him.
Right, and what does that moment look like? Like, in the final game, is that marsh going to be a full area with high trees and like really dense, detailed foliage, and then suddenly this massive, anaconda like thing is knocking down trees trying to get at you, and you're racing away from it in a chocobo? Like, it's thrilling to think about all the little things that are going to get this upgrade.
Yeah, that's true. That's one of the things that's been talked about more, or it was more recently. It was announced today, as of recording this. This came out today. Was a story just saying that the remake is going to have new areas that weren't seen in the original game, and at the same time it'll also be taking out some other places that just may not make sense logistically, or how they're going to be going forward. So I mean, that's supposed to be more of a sensible approach, according to, like, Tetsuya Nomura was the one who was talking about this, and he said that it would be they're just trying to balance kind of the new with the old, and what the goal of the world that they want, or the goal that they have set for this new take on Final Fantasy VII, like making Midgar a real city, to make it seem like a real city, not just kind of separate rooms that are connected to each other with like an entrance and an exit, basically.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see like that, to see what they do, cut out, how, if they shrink the world at all, but it doesn't really sound like it.
No, it doesn't. Go ahead.
Sorry. I just even think from a general design perspective, even like when you traverse little parts of Midgar and stuff and like are scaling, you tend to like move to the foreground to go up something to like keep going up. It's always going up and up and up and up, and like that's such a kind of an archaic kind of gameplay mechanic these days. So I'm really like, you literally, it is going to be such a vastly different game, like in pretty much every single aspect, and that terrifies me in a sense, in most senses to be honest. But I'm like obviously tentatively excited. But man, it's a big job, really big job.
It's interesting what you noted there. I think it will be really cool to be like, I was thinking of the moment when you're climbing all that refuse and those the makeshift kind of walkways and stuff. And I'm trying to remember. I think it's when you try to invade the second Mako reactor, and you have to go through it like from below and climb all that shit. And yeah, you're right. Like that's a case where the screen moves vertically, and you just are kind of supposed to interpret the scale of that moment in your head. But it'll be really crazy to see that whole like mountain of refuse and all the little things that Cloud has to climb to get up to that ledge. Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that. That's a good point.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of some of the more cinematic. I can't wait to see if they do actually like the big cinematic sequences. It'll be interesting to see if they do like shot for shot, like beautiful like replications of them and like current technology and current visuals, or if they're going to be more creative in there how they do it, like with the when you're in the heart. Oh god, I am so embarrassed. Can't remember these names. In the first kind of port city where the big cannon on it, I can't remember what these are called. Oh my god.
Junon?
I should know it. Yeah, Junon, yeah. When you're out in there, and then after the beasts, basically the big beasts wake up, like with Emerald and Ruby, and I think it was Sapphire was the one that charges, and everywhere like just all the guns get ready and everything goes, and they start firing the cannon, and just that whole scene is just super, super well done and really vivid in the old version, the original version of the game. So like I can't imagine how that would look on current systems, and that visual. If that's an interesting thing too, that if those moments were so special because they were so unique within the game, because they were so different. So it'd be interesting to see if some of that gets lost in the translation into the current title, because it'll be presumably the cutscenes are going to be in engine or look like they're in engine. I wouldn't say presumably they're in engine, but they'll look like they're in engine. So it's not going to be that stark contrast between the kind of goofy, cartoony character models and then these like real, hefty, like kind of big servings of footage that you get as a reward after playing for so long.
Yeah, to be honest, I think that's something that's pretty low on the list of being worried about. Like I imagine they're going to be keeping like very faithful to those sort of things. Or when they're in Calm and Cloud's talking about his time as soldier, and Sephiroth rises or comes to the fire when he's all that stuff. Like they're not going to change much of that, I don't imagine.
Well, my point is like I don't think they'll change it, but I think there will be more if they want it to be up to date with kind of the regular games. Like if it's going to be more of a movie, kind of more movie focused in a lot of ways that games are now than they were.
Yeah, it's
like when there's a simple dialogue scenes and those where it wasn't just like you're sitting like in the train car when they're all having the conversation at the beginning of the game. Is that going to be like a cinematic kind of sequence where they're like sitting in the car and the camera keeps shifting to the different faces and it's focused on not just like it's not going to be the same as it was where it's going to be a camera at the end of the train car looking at them and they're all just standing around talking to each other. Right. So I think it's going to lose some of its specialness in those moments. When you get to those
moments
big things,
moments like Sephiroth walking through the fire and other big story scenes like that, they're going to be presumably maybe no less chilling or no less emotional, but they will be less impressive just by virtue of the fact that everything around it looks as good as that scene. So like you're not going from the big bulky arms and 2D art to a 3D cutscene. It's just all going to be in engine kind of running together. So then, how do they?
You think maybe they'll pre-render that part though to try and keep that contrast?
To keep it have it like a novelty and to keep it be this special thing? Yeah, maybe.
Right. Yeah, I mean they're gonna make them look better than the game. I'm sure. Like they're gonna be separate video files when they get to the point. They're going to be really nice, high quality as they can get. I'm pretty sure. Like they're going to just keep the Final Fantasy's tradition of doing that. Because even 13 was like the game itself looked really good for the time. Like it looked amazing at the time, but the scenes were so much better because they took the effort to polish them more and make them more cinematic.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like that's going to continue on there. But Ernest, what was your favorite scene from Final Fantasy VII that you can't wait to see?
My favorite scene is probably gonna be Yuffie stealing materia.
You just took that from a line I told you over the weekend.
No,
Don't tell me that isn't true. I remember us talking about this, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I hated it when Yuffie takes your material." And you're like, "Oh yeah." At the time you didn't even come out and say you hadn't played the game. Just like E3. Yeah. Whoa! Oh my god! I can't believe it.
Do you think they'll remain optional characters, Vincent and her, or will like modern gameplay sensibility they'll
cool.
just?
But that's going
have
to be yeah. Boy,
there's a stronger chance I think that they get integrated into the storyline proper, just because there's been so many cases of them appearing in canonical.
Yeah,
I mean, Vincent's had his own standalone game, so I mean, they're kind of
and they're certainly not going to leave them out of the game. So my hunch is that they would just be that would become like mandatory sections of a story.
It'd be interesting to see how that goes, partly because of how they deal with the encounters in the system, because we haven't seen that much yet. We did get to see the combat system, which I'm sure we're going to dive into that a lot. But I think that a lot of because like Yuffie was dependent on the encounter that you had in a specific forested areas.
Oh, it's true.
Was how you got her.
Yeah.
She wasn't just like like Vincent Valentine was in a room somewhere, so you just basically had to go and find him, you basically had to just make sure that you walked into that room once it was unlocked. So
yeah, you had from what I'm just nearly at that part in the game at the moment, but from what I remember, you do have to do a couple of things to get it open. It's not just you stumble across this room.
You walk by the room like multiple times.
Yeah,
it's like in disc 1 or something. Like disc 1, you'll walk by it like a bunch of times and you can't get into it, and it doesn't unlock until like disc 2 later on, like halfway through it or something. It's like that's too late, but it's a long period of time before you can actually get into that room.
Do you think they'll keep all the characters? Like 9 characters
have to.
is quite substantial. I think
they
should. Like, and I think they have to. But
it'd be easier to do it now that it's episodic and they can kind of take their time with introducing.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that's
true.
an interest. I mean, that does call into the case of like if this is a weird question, because it's like if let's just say hypothetically, I don't really remember the cadence of the game that well, but if you meet. Let's see. You've got Barrett, Tifa, and Eris. At least by the time you leave Midgar, I don't think there's anybody else. And then, so let's just say like episode 1.
Yeah, Red 13's in Midgar.
Yes, yeah, that comes outside of Midgar. So let's just say that like episode 1 ends as they leave Midgar, and then if you wanted to make the party members more manageable, it's like maybe.
Well, yeah, because you have to split them up as soon as you leave or something, don't you? There's like one part where you leave Midgar and you have to separate your party.
Yeah. But then it's like, I don't feel like those... You're right, but I don't know if those moments are yeah. It's tough. I think no matter what, there's no good way for you to split the story in a way that would make their work easier, I guess. Like, I don't see any logical way you could have, say, 4 characters in episode 1, and then maybe 6 of the 9 characters come into the fray in episode 2, and then maybe you're back down to 5, but it's a different set of 5 in the last episode. Like maybe they're wanting to do that in a way because to be honest, it's like the development for this is just going to be so gargantuan.
And this is going to be interesting to talk to continue off of like what we had, like Ernest had said. It was announced that Final Fantasy VII is going to be an episodic game series, which by the way I called in our E3 podcast. When you can check that out earlier.
Will, do you have
Tetsuya
Nomura's statement about that in front of you by chance? Because I know that's
I do. I have a. I think this was. This is the quote from Nomura. So basically, the decision for doing this is. Well, I'll just read what he said. He said, if we dedicated our time to a single release, parts of it would become summarized. We've had to cut some parts, and additional parts would come in few, so rather than make the games as a full volume, we decided to do multiple parts. So they don't want to make it, they don't want to just try to force a game out for everybody. And and just kind of have to neglect a lot of things. Because if you really think about trying to recreate one of the earlier Final Fantasies, those worlds are huge.
They're very big, and they're very unique
scale.
As well. There's not a lot of recycling of assets unless you're talking about the open world, which obviously that would probably be the point of the game where they will, there'll be the starkest of differences because it's quite barren on Final Fantasy VII's kind of open world. But everything's really unique in that game. Every village is extremely different. All the assets are different. They don't see much of them being reused, so it is a gargantuan task. And I was in unison with everybody on the internet when I was linked to the NeoGAF thread about it being episodic. I was playing through the Don Corneo scene, and I just remember reading it and just turning to the TV and like, God damn it! What else are they gonna do? God damn it!
Yeah. The funniest thing is my flight landed on Sunday night, and it was almost in time with this news coming out. I think when I flipped my phone out of airplane mode, this had been revealed 10 minutes prior or something. And right off the bat, I see a tweet from, I want to say Dave Oshry or somebody that just says, "So I heard FF7 is literally Hitler now."
So, and this is one of the big things that I did want to address in this podcast as part of the reason why I was motivated to have Final Fantasy VII the only topic, and just kind of explain why this isn't a bad thing, and why this is actually a smart move for the gamers who have been just pandering for Final Fantasy VII to remake to happen. So we knew that at the beginning, once E3 was finished, there were reports that came out just shortly after that saying that Nomura didn't even know that he was a director of the game until after it was announced, or after he saw his name in one of the trailers.
I still think that's just completely outrageous.
So it's like,
oh, by the way.
So I mean, but there's things like that. So if you wanted this game to be a single game that fully replicated the scale and the scope and the everything about the original Final Fantasy VII, this game would not be seen until 2023 or later than that.
Square, absolutely.
It wouldn't even. It would be long way away. The fact that they're doing an episodic approach to this means that they're implies that they're going to be creating full-size game experiences across multiple discs over a period of time, and this means that the first one is going to come out much sooner than people had initially hoped.
We have to press it with the fact that it is still an issue of kind of semantics and not misinformation, but we still aren't sure.
Right.
A full title, full game, that can be 10 hours, that can be 60 hours, that could be a Witcher's 120 hours. We don't know.
Mm-hmm. And there's no I'm not saying that there's no reason to see there's no reason to be negative about this. I'm saying that there's reason you need to wait and hold off on your judgment on whether or not this is good or bad, because people seem to have flocked to the negative viewpoint already that this is a horrible decision. How could they do this and disrespect this game so much? And it's calm down. It's good.
It's just due to the value of the word episodic.
Right.
I think calling it a multi-part series of three say fully fledged games is way different than saying the remake of Final Fantasy VII, one of the most beloved games of the 1990s, is episodic. It just has negative connotation to it.
Or don't even call it a multi-part series. Just call it we're making it into 3 games. Just keep it at 3 games.
We're doing it like The Hobbit, except
But during the course of our conversation, though, it was an interesting point that was raised when talking about the splitting up the party members if it was going to be across different games. Well, does this mean that your game is going to be what your character files and stuff, will that transfer over between games? Will there be a level cap of 99 for each game? Or will there be a set level that you can reach to, and then that will be your benchmark of the capacity you can get in order to start off into the next game? Are you going to start over every game? That's an interesting. That's what I want to know. So
the idealist in me, the optimist, is sitting here thinking, man, I really hope that they release these parts much like the discs of the original game, where it's Disc 1, you get, and I really don't remember where Disc 1 ends. I feel like it's shortly after you leave Midgar, right?
It's a little.
not really.
No, it's when you get when you're.
Shut up,
It's
Ernest.
when you're. It's like right when you're about to cross the sea. I think cross the ocean. I'm pretty sure
there's a substantial amount after Midgar in the first.
Yeah,
disc.
I think it's what you get through. I mean, you skip a lot of stuff around you, but you get to like Junon, and then I think you just you get ready to cross, or you just cross. I think I don't know.
Okay.
Somewhere around there, but yeah.
But it could be a thing where, like, you know, you transition, or I guess when episode 1 comes out, and then you get to the end of it, and it, you know, it kind of rolls maybe some half credits or something, and says part 2 to be continued. You know, maybe when you start up part 2, they've already created all of the assets that are in part 1, and so it kind of works like the discs in a way where it's like you've got the whole world open to you on disc 2. It's just that disc 2 contains the second act of the story, and then maybe if they have certain areas where you need to like go to a different well, that would be kind of weird, because then it's like you know, switch to disc 1, except now it's like close the application and
wait 6 months.
Yeah, it's gonna maybe I'm being too optimistic, kind of thinking that they're gonna go that route, because it might just be a technological impossibility.
Yeah,
to do
I mean,
that.
it'd be interesting to know, but you could manage it more that way, where they can basically just build off of everything that's already there, and
Yeah,
just close. They basically just kind of close off certain aspects of it. Like you can't go back into some of the Mako reactors, and you can't fight. They go into some of those areas because they're blown up, and that whole section of the game is now not part of the game anymore in disc 2. But you can see the wreckage like you can, like in the original. So I mean, that would be an interesting approach, but. Yeah, I was just wondering about that. If you're going to be dependent on having a save file before you can play the second one, or can somebody jump into the second one? If a save file is required or not, because then that's like, will the level start over when you get there? But you'll have a set amount of equipment. And so it'd just be interesting to know how. Like that's the most interesting thing, because if they're trying to stay true to the original game but split it up. There are unique issues associated with this that have never come up before. So that's,
the closest analog I could think of might be the Mass Effect series, where there's kind of a default state of the universe when you, like, say you start 2 or you start 3 from scratch, and I guess they could do a similar thing with Final Fantasy, where they have just, here's the default Cloud who's like level 35 when you start episode 2, and if you don't have a previous save file, this is just what you get, and we've made a few decisions for you. I don't know if there's any other way they can do it.
Man, that just feels so weird, though.
It does, yeah. It's
not
like
personable.
Final Fantasy meets Mass Effect. Yeah, the whole episodic thing is like, I had a negative reaction toward it first, and then the thing I've always kind of held to when stuff like this happens and like our nostalgia gets toyed with this franchise or the other is that for me it's always you should take your memories of that thing you love, in this case the original FF7, you should take that experience and everything that means to you, and kind of just lock it up and say, this is its own thing, and it will always be its own thing. And I to be honest, I'm kind of treating the new Star Wars movie the same way. Like, no matter how good or disappointing or whatever this is, it's still, I don't have to let it ruin my impression of the original, right?
Yeah, I think too many people are focusing on this as a replacement.
Yeah,
to Final Fantasy VII. It's like,
exactly.
no, this is a totally different game. This has nothing to do with the original game. Like,
and
it's
if
inspired.
You don't like it, if the remake sucks, I mean, if the remake sucks, that that stinks, because then it's a poor game.
Go back to the original.
Doesn't. Right. It's one of those things where you do. I think it's okay to step back, like you said earlier, Will, and relax and see where they go with it. Don't make that early judgment, because it doesn't have to replace the original. And frankly, if you let it replace the original in your mind, if you let it tarnish the legacy, that's kind of your problem.
Yeah.
It's not, doesn't have to be a thing where that's on you, that you let it affect your memories.
And I honestly just don't think anybody is going to care about it being episodic once it comes out. Once the first one comes out, nobody's going to care, except for when they get to the end of the game and they just can't wait to play more of it. That's kind of, I feel like that's the goal that they're trying to have right now when they're doing it. They want to get their game out to the fans in the best way they can, and this episodic format just means that they are going to take the time to try to do this right for fans. but they want fans to experience it because they've been waiting so long for it. That's
the
kind of
price thing is the only thing that's got me a little bit concerned.
Sure.
If each part is $60, then I'm like, well, yeah. I mean,
if each game is if it's a full Square Enix JRPG for each episode, then $60 is fine. But
people won't react that way though.
Well, once they start playing
look at it as Final Fantasy VII.
Well, once they start playing it depends on. Well, that's right now we don't know what's happening with it, but I mean if they're gonna do it this way, and if they're gonna make it a full Square Enix JRPG, they're gonna treat it as an episodic series, or they're gonna treat it as parts 1, 2, and 3, or like Uncharted 1, 2, 3. You could argue that those tell the same story, but nobody's upset about them being released in separate formats. But that's because they don't have that kind of baggage over their head.
I think it depends how much they expand upon the universe. I think I will have a bit of trouble if it is modeling $60, say, till the end of Midgar or whatever else, and then continue. I want to see how far they expand it, how much they bring in of the extended lore and stuff, and really build, in essence, new games that are bookends. There is appropriate rhyme to the reason.
To me, the compromise might be. Sorry to interrupt you, Adam. To me, the compromise might be $60 for the base game, and then a substantial season pass. Something to the tune of, instead of $30 for parts 2 and 3, we're saying, okay, another $60 will get you acts 2 and 3, maybe. So that it's kind of like, because you need to fund the development of those 2 additional games, and that's no joke from their end. I mean, it's going to cost just insane amounts of money to make this remake.
And that's what I think people have to be completely aware of. How long they take in development and stuff. It's pretty insane. Like, FF15, versus 13, how long we're talking here. But I think you've got to take that into consideration, the length of development time, how it will cost an extortionate amount of money. And I don't think Square is in a position, like, they're still a very, profitable company, but I don't think they're in the position to, like, put all their eggs in this one basket. They want to, because it is pretty much the most valuable title and obviously one of the biggest series in the world. But it's in the current climate in 2015, game development the way it is, it's a massive amount of money and pressure just to, like, go ahead with it. So splitting it up makes financial sense. It makes sense from a time perspective. Enlisting the help of all these different developer studios, I'm a bit wary of it, but it makes, again, sense, because as we mentioned before, at the start of this, effectively, if it was just a single release and it was just Square and they outsourced tiny parts of it, maybe the biking parts, or the golden saucer parts, or whatever else, the snowboarding, of course, we would be talking 2021, 2020 at the earliest. Like, it would take a long time.
Yeah, so at this point, we just kind of have to hope that they treat the consumer well when it does finally come out, and then say, let's not. We're going to make some kind of, and this is in my perfect world scenario, we're going to make some kind of compromise to gain your trust a little bit. That's all it really is at the end of the day. It's goodwill on their part to not do this as like a 60 thing. But the other thing that, and this just occurred to me a second ago, if I have one reservation about the whole thing besides the money aspect and seeing where that goes, it's that because of the realities of game development and how the company's bottom line is going to shift over time, the company's health is going to shift over time, and we are talking about, from the time episode 1 comes out to the time episode 3 comes out, that could very well be 6 years in between that gap. And I am slightly concerned if or maybe just aware of the fact that because of that changing landscape, their approach to developing episode 3 might be different than the approach they took developing episode 1. Like, they might, it's episode 3 now, so let's be a little more experimental about the areas we bring,
do the same thing as like Final Fantasy 13 with the total difference from each game.
And it's like, hey, we spent way too much time modeling this one street of Midgar in Act 1, so let's be a little more conservative with our resources in Act 3. And then it's like, at that point, and again, this is looking like 8 years down the line, you put all 3 parts together, I think you might see the seams of that development over time if you compare like Act 1 to Act 3, and it's just lessons they learned in the meantime. But trying to put it together as a cohesive whole later, you might be like, huh, the game. You can almost feel that they had a different development style near the end of the game than at the beginning, and that might kind of
it depends. Yeah, it depends on how much they recycle when they're.
That's so alien for a JRPG. You know, you grow into what the game is, and by the end of it, it's kind of your battle worn, but like it's cohesive. It's going to be so kind of odd if you get all attached to these characters and you're in a 40-hour adventure, and then by the end of the third game, everything just stylistically is different, and those characters you've played with for, say, 100 hours will just feel different. It'll just be weird, I think. It's something you can certainly get used to, but I just think it's something that's pretty unprecedented in like the RPG.
Yeah, so we just...
I don't know if they'll take that much of a leap. I mean, you look at the Final Fantasy XIII series, at least visually they tried to stay consistent, and character-wise, tried to maintain their personality and actions.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, they do have some experience with dealing with multi-part sagas, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think it's
there is a difference between Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy XIII, though.
True.
But yeah, I mean, I think it depends on how big the episodes are going to be, like what we're saying, and because for the episode 1, I think no matter what, I don't see that. I would optimistically guess that it would come out in like 2018 but
that sounds about right.
Episode 1, I wouldn't like. It's actually scheduled to be shown.
Maybe?
It's actually scheduled to be shown again in 2 weeks, which is really peculiar. Kind of how quickly they're trying to, get it into the public consciousness. I'm really surprised.
Did they say that they're going to be showing new stuff?
I don't know if they're showing new stuff, but they're certainly showing.
Because if they're scheduling to show it, that could just be the same. I mean, they're just going to be the same trailer in a different venue.
It is a different venue. I'm not sure. Yeah, it could be, but that would still seem a bit like if it's like point for point the exact same one. It kind of would seem a bit odd.
But I mean, they're also competing in development resources with 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3. So they need those out first, and they've already said that this is a long way off, like for 7.
Yeah.
So I'd say that would be the earliest I would imagine seeing it would be 2018. And
bear in mind how quick it seems to have gotten off the ground. If we're talking at a reveal at E3,
well, part of it too is
knowing that he's the director of the game to December.
Yeah, we saw a very small. All we saw were cinematic areas, and we saw a very, very small portion of Midgar, and we know that they're using Unreal Engine for their visuals.
So they could have all quickly modeled and made all this just for the convention. I mean, developers.
I just think it's odd that they did to go from a formal announcement to gameplay footage that quickly, and especially for Square. It just seems.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would bother if you're not at least a little bit into the game,
Well, it was talked about too. I mean, it has been said too that it's believed by a number of people that they have been working on it for quite a while already. I'm sure that there are a number of people who were working on this project. It just wasn't it wouldn't be surprising that for like Nomura not to be like formally listed as the.
Yeah, they've had CyberConnect 2 doing things in the background and stuff. So
exactly. I think Square is trying to build some good faith with consumers, and with their press conference at E3, definitely the attitude you were getting from them is that they're trying to get better at getting their games made, getting them out, and making more of the games that core gamers want to play, and not just a smaller, either mobile or
Adam mentioned CyberConnect 2, and that's also an interesting part of this picture is that, we don't know the exact split, but they are working with CyberConnect 2 enough on the development to the point that, I'm looking at the translation from Famitsu right now on Gematsu.com, and they're working with CyberConnect 2 on development enough that they're getting into tussles over certain things. Like there's a quote in here that says, Square Enix is keeping close with CyberConnect 2 as their production tastes differ from that of Square Enix. Nomura himself was annoyed by the direction of the new trailer, for example, and so Square Enix had to come in to bring it closer to the company's style. So that tells me that CyberConnect 2 has maybe as much as half the share or even greater on the actual game development. I don't think that affects the release window necessarily, because they do have to just make room for FF15 and Kingdom Hearts, so they're gonna wait until those are both out anyway, regardless of whether the game's ready or not. Mm-hmm. But there is that interesting wrinkle in all this, is that not only are we talking about, what changes does Square envision, what changes is Nomura okay with, but also what changes are just going to come as a result of a different team developing the game.
For those who aren't familiar, CyberConnect, just for our listeners, CyberConnect 2, they're most famous for doing the Naruto Ultimate Ninja games, and then they also did the dot hack RPGs back in the day on PS2.
An interesting portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No slouches.
Wide range, yeah.
So, I mean, they've got that. I think their specialty kind of seems to lean towards action. I mean, that's what they've been doing for the most recent years with Naruto video games.
Yeah, and then I think that'll be a good thing to touch on what we haven't talked about yet, which is kind of a hot topic coming off of the trailer, was the battle system that was shown off during the show. There's a lot of people who, I know that there's a ton of people who have reservations on it, and they just praised the perfectness of the action time battle system in the original Final Fantasy VII, and that they should never change it, and that should be in every single game that's ever come out forever.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic battle system, but it's for what they're trying to do. The goal with this game is it's a remake, and they want it to be up to current generation kind of titles and interests that are out there.
Right. You can't have new gamers coming in and everything about the remake looks great. The graphics, the visuals, the music, and then they're left sitting here, dinking around with their with the turn-based combat.
Yeah.
And then, then what's it all for?
Yeah. So it's interesting to talk about the people that are working on the games, which means that they probably have a lot more influence than, in terms of this game, having a lot more outside influence for the battle system than, say, 15, which is what I initially thought that's what it looked like to me when I saw it. It looked a lot like 15, but it was more kind of pulled out, and it wasn't as stylized, I guess, in terms of being pulled in and just kind of being more flowy kind of looking when you're fighting everything. But
I'm sure that's what they were thinking when they brought in CyberConnect 2. Is like, hey, these guys can do, action games really well,
right?
Animation and the combat. So let's team up with them and see if we can bring this into like a modern action RPG.
Yeah, Nomura was brought in during an interview talking about the system and people's concerns about it, and thinking that it's the same as like from Crisis Core, being the same type of style. And this is just kind of his quote from this was just sort of interesting. He said, "If I have to say it's an action-based system, it's completely different from Crisis Core. Not that strong in action, such as an arcade Dissidia Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts." And he also said, "As a matter of fact, there's ATB." And he said, "But it's not like we render an attack after the ATB gauge is filled. The action system will be the one Final Fantasy VII alone can deliver." So it's going to be a totally unique type of thing, and it has active time battle system elements to it. So I mean, that's what's going to be interesting to see. I watched the trailer again, and I was trying to catch to see. I know people were kind of complaining about not wanting it to be action oriented because they don't like button mashing kind of combat. So I was just watching to see in the trailer what was going on when you're seeing the strokes, and you can see, I believe, I'd have to see it again just to double check, but it looked like when it was hovering, there's the bar on the side that's kind of traditional in Final Fantasy games, where you can select like the attack, item, summon, kind of stuff like that. And in this one,
which actually looks a lot more like Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, it does for that.
The original game.
When he was attacking, I was just kind of looking at it, and I saw the kind of shimmer happening multiple times during the attack one. So it did look like Kingdom Hearts in that kind of regard, or just like it looked like somebody was kind of like pressing the button a lot, or like rapidly, to execute a sequence of attacks. But who knows how much kind of leeway you'll have in terms of combos and uses for that, or the mechanics of the system. And I'd want to know the ATB elements of it, because we didn't see anything hinting at that at all in the
Exactly.
trailer.
I think that's the most important thing. I mean, I expected the combat system to be the way it is, but I don't want a entirely kind of hack and slash kind of.
And how much influence you have on your party members too.
Exactly, yeah, and your general movements and stuff. Yeah, I have faith that they can meld it together with a sort of kind of something that will be a little bit more faithful to the original game. I'm confident they can do that. So I'm still I like it as it is. You know, I think it's got potential. I think it's just endemic of the year we're in, and you know, the standard turn base is gone. So
yeah, and I mean, I guess and we have that's the same thing as that. This is we have to look at this as a current generation game, not as Final Fantasy VII with a new skin to it, because that's not what this is. That's not the goal of this.
If you want to play FF7, if you want to play FF7 with a turn-based system, go and play FF7 with a turn-based system.
Yeah,
we already know what that game feels like. We already know what that game is, and you could make the argument that we don't know what that game is with next-gen graphics, but to me, it's like it's
PS4 ports out. You can go get it.
Yeah, you've got true enough. I am looking at a screenshot while we were talking here of the battle system, and if I look closely at Cloud and Barrett's party info on the bottom right corner, they do seem to have like a white or gray ATB bar under their names, and with Barrett, the screenshot I'm looking at has Barrett as the player character, and it's like partially filled. I wonder if, like, keeping with the action system, and this is totally speculation, but maybe they'll have it where when the gauge fills, you can press X to say initiate your regular attack, and doing that kind of kicks off like a combo, and then by the time that combo is finished, the bar has basically filled again, so you can kind of, if you want to just do normal physical attacks, you can kind of do it ad nauseum, but then something like magic will like cause the next refill to go a lot slower or something like that.
I mean, would that be similar to Final Fantasy 13 kind of combat system
at this point?
I mean, that's very similar to 13, which 13's battle system was amazing. It was so good towards the end of the game. It's kind of slow starting when you at the very beginning, but that battle system would be amazing to see with like Final Fantasy VII characters and in that world. Like, I would love to see that, but it doesn't look at all what. I mean, it very much could be like what you're saying with the gauge filling and that kind of stuff, but it doesn't. I would be very, very surprised if that was the route they take, especially if they're bringing in, was it Cyber Direct 2 coming in to work on it. So I don't know. It's just there's so much that we don't know yet, but there's so much that we want to talk about. So
because I think the most important for me is that we can talk about how the control will feel and the battle system and all that. But for me, I think, and again, it's more a sign of the times in which it was released in, its tone and its kind of quirkiness and how that stuff could possibly translate to now. We know that the Don Corneo scene is going to be in there, thankfully. But even just other little things like being able to officially go on a date with Barrett and stuff, or dressing up in the soldier garb to see off Rufus and stuff. Just little things like that.
All those little mini games. Do you think those are going to make a presence into it?
The fact that after like Ares dies, within I'm not sure how long, it's not even an hour, you're snowboarding. Like these off the weird kind of little mini things, and just how much you can play around in the Golden Saucer. Because if I swear to God, if they start microtransactions in the Golden Saucer, I am not going to. Especially if I have to buy the game 3 times.
We riot.
I'm going to riot. But it's like, it is one of the quirkiest games I've ever played, and it's got all these little different facets. Even the motorcycle scene just after you go up Shinra Tower and stuff. All these little things. I'm not. That's what I'm most concerned about, because I think that at its heart is like a fundamental like essence of what I love about the game. So to see those done with modern sensibilities and like design choices and stuff, I don't know. I think a few of them will be cut. I'm terrified to know which ones, though, because I think they are just so important, and everybody remembers them so well. So,
right, and I think that would make sense in terms of what the Nomura was talking about that I'd mentioned before, with picking and choosing kind of things to keep and to expand upon, and things to remove for sensible reasons. And that's one of the things that I was thinking about, was when you're in the north, going towards the crater, and you have to go through this kind of snowy maze area to try to figure out, there's a bunch of item drops randomly scattered around that you can find, but if you take too long out there or take too many steps, you'll pass out and wake up in a cabin. You have to walk through it again and try to make it so you don't freeze. And like I could easily see that being totally nixed from the game, just because it's something that it's a cool thing, and I clearly remember experiencing it, but it's not necessary in any way to progressing the story or really to the world of FF7 in the way a lot of other things are. Like I'd imagine they're going to spend a heck of a lot of time on the Golden Saucer, like an abnormal amount of time on that compared to other parts of the game, because that's, especially with it being so. That actually, it would be interesting to see how much of that is going to be kind of true to like a true replica of what was in the game, or if they're going to be like, because the Golden Saucer has made a new current gen appearance in Final Fantasy XIV, as Kyle knows. And they did a really good job in making that, but that's a totally unique Golden Saucer, and it's an experience and to fit its setting. So it's
it's totally different interpretation. So yeah, it'll be cool to see what the true simulation or the true callback to the Gold Saucer looks like, and even how many mini games they decide to keep. You know, some of the mini games in there, it's like, it's fine. It's just like, but it's kind of a throwaway thing that was cool at the time, and maybe they don't want to spend the and seriously, like they don't want to spend maybe the month it would take to create one of those mini games from scratch and polish it and stuff. Maybe they'll decide, well, it's just this one isn't that important. Like snowboarding isn't that important, or basketball.
Excuse me.
Examples. Snowboarding is awesome, but yeah, those are decisions that they're gonna have to make, and nobody is gonna come out on the other end completely happy, and that's even with us fans. Like there's no question.
They've taken an impossible mission.
If there's one thing that they think is a slam dunk removal, like there's no, like this is the safest possible thing we can do to save us a little bit of time and energy. I mean, nobody's going to come through unscathed. So it's just about them finding the right balance of content.
Yeah,
I do not envy them.
Yeah, no kidding. Enemy encounters is the other thing that I'm curious to see how they're going to handle that. If it's going to be in the same vein as kind of the newer games where they're physical entities that you can see in the world when you're walking through, and you can try to avoid them, or if they're going to be, if it's going to be more scripted in terms of the encounters in different areas and than it has in the past, or if they're just going to be that would be interesting to see. If it's more of just a traditional Final Fantasy type of encounter system where it's just you're walking through the city and then all of a sudden the music happens and the screen shakes and all of a sudden you're in a battle. But it's not a full turn-based system, so
yeah,
I'd imagine it'd be closer to 15 than anything in their approach.
Yeah, no, I'd presume it would have to be that. I think even expanding upon that, their enemy design is going to be very interesting. Like, if you look at it objectively, like Final Fantasy VII's enemy design in some cases were just bizarre. Like, you're fighting a house. You're fighting a thing that looks like a speaker that shoots rockets at you. You're fighting a thing that looks alive but is actually a motorbike type thing.
I was just thinking of that.
And it's just like, what's going on? I don't understand it.
Yeah.
So, even like I imagine they're all going. Like they will not be making a reappearance, but that's what I mean about just the kind of the essence and this quirkiness of Final Fantasy VII. I think that's why, since it was a lot of people's first JRPG in the West, it's just such an endearing memory. Just all these little facets, and that's what I'm afraid I don't want to have lost on this new game. I know there will have to be concessions, and I know things stylistically shouldn't be there, but there's that little part of your heart that is like, it's a nostalgia thing, and I know we should like leave that locked in a case somewhere, and Final Fantasy VII is what it is, and have your memories, and that'll be it. But I find it hard to remove myself completely from that.
Oh, sure.
And see this game objectively, like, all right, this is a new game with modern sensibilities, and here it is. It's just hard to remove myself from just wanting it to just be so faithful, but it's never going to be like fully faithful. But hopefully, at least, I won't have too many complaints when it finally comes around. When I'm probably 30-something.
So continuing off of that, we can take a moment now to tell Square Enix exactly how they can avoid fucking up. So we can say,
Quit now.
What things would be unforgivable for them to not have in this new Final Fantasy? So like off the top of my head, clearly materia has to be in there.
Yeah.
I think they have to have
100%.
all of the companions. The other thing that it's very dependent on how they treat the battle system. How would you think of how would they do limit breaks? Because that's what I was trying to figure out. Because I mean that's one of the most iconic moments that you can have in Final Fantasy VII is getting to the end of the game and using Omni Slash on Sephiroth. Or actually, that is the scripted part where you do that at the end of the game. So, but is that going to change? Is it going to be different? Can you have limit breaks?
I imagine you could. I think. Yeah. The more you attack, I imagine the gauge will go up, and then maybe you'll have a button prompt where you have to like tap 4 buttons or something, and then it does this scripted animation. It's gonna be weird, like scaling against some enemies. Like there is some pretty huge enemies in that game. So if you're doing quite a free-flowing system where you're running around the place, it's gonna be very hard to balance that properly. Plus, I'm hoping Knights of the Round still takes an absolute age to do. I can go get a cup of tea and then come back and it'll still be going. But no, they have to have them breaks. I think there's just certain things in the materia system. I have full faith that it will remain there.
Yeah.
It should remain there.
I don't think there's any question on there that they would remove that.
Do you think there's any particular story beats that they might choose to discard?
Well, there are some that are totally optional, like Yuffie's story. Her whole village thing is a totally optional thing. Which is kind of sad because that's one of the cooler. That's one of the areas that just kind of mixes things up more than most other parts of the game, where it's just like a totally different Oriental kind of just really cool samurai or like ninja village.
Yeah. I'd imagine that could still be in there.
It could be, yeah. I'd hope that would be part of a scene. Like, I don't think the traveling is going to be remotely the same or going from city to city.
Yeah, it could be. It would look too peculiar to the way it's done in the original game. Is very looking back. It's very odd. You have just this open barren plain and these like miniature things you can just go into, and then you're in that city or you're in that town. That, as I said previously, I think that's going to be what is most eye-catchingly different. They're going to have to populate this world. They're going to have to put like foliage and trees and mix it up so you're not just going across.
Actually, I think that's a good thing. Is this going to be an open world game?
I think it will be. It'll be segmented, like the original game where you have these towns you can leave. You're out into kind of an open thing. How you traverse that open plain, I don't think it will be the same, but I can imagine it being broken up pretty significantly.
Because like I don't think I actually would be all that disappointed if it wasn't an open world game where they kind of bridged the paths to going to different places if they replaced those with kind of like cinematic scenes.
Yeah, so, I wouldn't mind.
I know that you'd lose a lot of the original game if you were doing it that way. But
I mean, I'd like a bit of traversal, but and maybe I'll feel different in a couple of years when it finally comes out. But I think I do have a little bit of open world fatigue, and I would like something that it's a little more linear. Like not linear in the sense that I like the towns.
Not Final Fantasy 13 linear.
Yeah, I want the expanses like of Midgar and of all the other towns and stuff. But the point A to point B, getting to those points, I could do without it being this huge open expanse where you have to like run or chocobo it over somewhere.
Yeah, and that was something in the original one that got somewhat taxing.
Oh yeah,
parts.
Yeah.
So, well, there's one thing that they could. I can't imagine that. This is where it's so difficult thinking about these things. This is something that they could totally remove. Would be the what is it called? It's a tower. The tower with the phoenix on it.
Oh god, I'm not even there at the moment.
I can't remember the name of the
place.
Yeah,
no, I can't remember.
But yeah, it's where you get the phoenix materia towards the end. But it's that tower is totally unnecessary from the whole part of the game. But that's also one of the more iconic like landmarks in the game world that you get to see. So like I would love to hear the conversations that they have when they're deciding what's in and what's out.
Yeah, because I think if you pick any game in history, this is probably the top 10 of games that will be the hardest to remake because there's just so many aspects that are of their time. Yeah. Like the open world aspect, completely different. The battle is completely different. The style of the game is quirkiness, completely different of a different time. The characters are different. Everything's different. And even as we mentioned before, Colin mentioned the scaling of getting to places where it's like foreground and background, and you're kind of having to, jump to different areas. That's completely different these days.
Yeah.
It's literally ground up. It's... like Square's mentioned previously years ago that if they ever were to remake it, it would be a massive undertaking. It would take years and years and years. And I'm actually still surprised when you all of that, like when you put all of that into consideration, that it's actually even happening.
I wouldn't be surprised if they I wouldn't be surprised if they had some very loose, very ethereal idea at the time that they did actually eventually want to do this, but they were just trying to I
think it was inevitable.
Dip their toe in the water, be like, hey, if we ever did do this, it would take a really long time, just kind of like prepping us a little bit, getting us warmed up for the inevitable wait. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the demo that we're seeing today, the pieces of that, we don't know. In the very, very back rooms of Square Enix, they could have been working on this in little chunks since the tech demo on PS3 ages and ages ago, just living in the back end of their system or the back end of their database as a few files here, and then a few things get tinkered with there, and then suddenly we have this Unreal Engine demo that we see today.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a lot to digest, and there's so many things to talk about, but there's so much that's still unknown that it's...
Yeah, it'll be a topic we come back to.
Yeah, we'll come back to it a lot. But
we'll have a lot of time to come back to it, I guess.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't touch on too much is how do you guys feel about the quality of the graphics that we saw in the demo? Or maybe not the quality, since it's still early footage in some respects, but I mean, do you like the art direction that they're going with? Do you like the way that the characters are looking today?
I was glad they didn't go down the Advent Children route. I think that's a bit more tonally kind of, I don't know, damp, and kind of Cloud was kind of made seem different to what I would have imagined him from 7. And I was thinking as well...
Yeah, I did notice that there was a fog over Advent Children. I mean, a literal fog, because the weather was foggy that entire movie, but also just the way it was... How did you describe it just then, Adam? Kind of a...
It was damp.
And not dark. Yeah, damp. That's it. Yeah, it is. It's like this depressing kind of oh, geez. It's like the rain. It's been raining for 5 days. That's how it feels in that entire movie.
Cloud was a little bit moany and stuff, so I was thinking if they were going to keep any semblance of the quirkiness in this game, they couldn't go down that stylistic route of Advent Children. They had to kind of brighten it up a little bit more, and, I'm glad they have done. Actually, I really like the look of it at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think Barrett's still... I really kind of like the way Barrett looked in Advent Children, so it's taken me a little while longer to get used to him. But I think Cloud looks pretty on point.
Yeah, the character redesigns are going to be interesting to see how much they do, because Barrett is very different.
Yeah, he is very different.
So Barrett is very different. Even down to some of his accessories, like he's wearing sunglasses in the demo. I thought that was a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it is possible, I guess, that maybe they don't have the exact look of his eyes or his face down pat. So maybe they're... I mean, they really could be just covering part of it, because they're like, we don't really have Barrett in a place where we're confident and ready to show him to the masses yet. So, but yeah, it was cool to see Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge. It's going to be cool to see everybody. Don Corneo, what does he look like these days? What does Marlene look like? What does Rufus look like?
I think Marlene will be expanded upon quite a lot. I think she'll be.
I hope so.
More central to the story.
I think the next...
Well, they have to do something to blow up the Midgar section of the game and make it, last more than whatever it is, 8 hours, 9 hours.
Yeah.
I think the next huge reveal for the game is going to include, it's just going to include, the hair of Sephiroth, or, the back, his back shoulders. It's not going to show... It's, they're just not going to show him anything.
It'll pretty much just be his hair passing his shoulder, and then down to the blade, pretty much, I imagine.
Yeah, they're not going to show... It'll just be, that same iconic fire scene.
It would be really crazy, and I don't think it's going to happen in this day and age, but if you think back to the marketing none of us were really aware of the game at this time, but the marketing campaign for the original game, there were totally characters and events and things that obviously the whole game wasn't told through commercials leading up to the release, so this is never going to happen, but I think it would be really ballsy on Square's part to not show Sephiroth until the game comes out.
Yeah,
he's just conspicuously absent from all the marketing materials, and then
I think that's. I actually think he's going to be very last minute. I think they'll show him right before the game comes out. But
I think so.
Yeah,
it will parallel the game
Despite-
because there is in the original game there is such a you are really waiting to see Sephiroth.
Yeah, I mean, they
so much.
Yeah, they honestly could just do like a character reveal like Street Fighter's been doing for their new game. Like, since everybody knows these iconic characters and there's enough companions that you have, they honestly could just do a character reveal for like each trailer leading up to the release of the first game. And then just have Sephiroth just be like the final. Well, actually, it depends on how they cut off the episode, because he doesn't show off. He doesn't show up that much.
He's in a flashback while you're still in Midgar, I think. Like you see.
He's in the flashback in Calm and Leave Midgar where it shows Cloud when they're in what's it
This is
called?
when they first go to Nibelheim.
Nibelheim, yeah.
But you also see him on the top floor of the Shinra building too. He's in that top office, right? And then he gets away at the last second.
Yeah, actually, I want to see the doctor's
I can't remember. Do you
view.
see him? I know the knife or the big sword is in the back of the.
I really feel like you
No,
do.
you don't.
Remember him.
I don't think you do. Like, I just played through that part. You see him slumped over with the president with the sword in him, and you know that Sephiroth's been there, and they mention it, but you don't get to see him. You only actually see him properly. Well, you see him properly, and then a few minutes later, you see the iconic in the flames thing.
Yeah, so he could just be totally that. Actually, then they shouldn't show him at all if they're going to be primary. If it's going to be mainly Midgar
and ballsy as hell.
And lead. Well, actually, if they did Midgar and they had you go to Nibelheim and then lead up to that, because that's kind of where the story really starts to kind of kick off at that point. Then you could just have it end with just a slight teaser of Sephiroth at the end of the first episode.
That'd be sick.
That'd be really cool.
That'd be crazy. Yeah, I just think it'd be really ballsy on their part to do that, and I'm right there with you guys. I would love that. I would love if we don't see Sephiroth or Genova or just even a bunch of side characters like Vincent. It'd be cool to not know what Vincent looks like until you find him in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think I really like the direction of the game. There's not a single thing artistically that I really took issue with. I mean, you're going to have slight changes to character models. I think Cloud looks really faithful to his original artwork. Barrett, Barrett has a few different clothing.
He's turned into
items.
Mr. T.
Yeah, and I've seen people complaining about Cloud's arms and stuff. I'm like, I think that literally is most on-point representation of what he would look like.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah, I mean,
he's not a big guy at all.
He's not a big guy. He's like, his arms are small, but they're defined, and he's not he's not.
We also have to deal
huge.
with
the people in Final Fantasy VII only ever do squats anyway, so they never use.
Of course, that mini game better be still in it. Actually, of course it is. If the Don Corneo thing is in it, the squats will be in it.
I'm always willing to look past stuff like that, like the little intricacies of his muscle tone and his arm size, because it's like
this is the internet. You know what it's like.
No, but all you're really basing that on, all they're basing it on, is really just there's that piece of concept art, that the classic one with Cloud as kind of more of a cartoony character where he's hoisting the Buster Sword over his back, and he's got even in that art, it's low detail. The arms are drawn a certain way there, but we are looking at. I mean, this was 1997. There were limitations in how you could convey what the artist has in his mind, or what Tetsuya Nomura had in his mind as Cloud Strife, onto paper and into the game. I mean, who's to say that this Cloud, this new one, might be the most accurate representation all along, like the one that he always wanted to make, the one that he always wanted to convey.
Actually, I would want to see character model comparisons of Cloud in this most recent trailer, but also Cloud in the trailer for Super Smash Brothers, because he's going to be coming to that. Which still, I have no idea how that even is a thing. That makes absolutely no sense, but whatever.
He wasn't in PlayStation All-Stars. He wasn't in PlayStation All-Stars,
right.
But damn it, he's there with the Smash Brothers.
Yeah, he's in a game under a brand that he's never been a part of in any right, and Advent Children was even released under Sony Pictures, so it's like...
Yeah, it's really peculiar.
How does this make any sense? But they're going to sell a ton of games because of that.
Yeah, true that.
But, well, I guess if it's... Final Fantasy the remake is going to be coming out first to PlayStation 4. But will that even... could that even come out on Wii U? Or that could come out on the... Isn't there... Nintendo's having a new...
Wii U.
There's like rumors that either just the same PC port that just came to PS4 will come to Wii U or NX. Or
yeah, I was gonna say that,
and also that the remake might come to.
This will be
NX.
on the NX.
I was gonna say NX would
I'm not
be.
gonna say it's
NX.
fair bet, but I think it will.
Yeah, NX will have come out by then for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I've heard.
They're
It's
gonna
got
put
industry-leading chips. It's definitely going to be good.
They're going to put the remake on everything they possibly can. It's going to be on Xbox.
Yeah.
It's going to be on PC. It's going to be
Exactly,
on
because
the
again, we
Xbox,
can
like,
not
God.
stress
They need to
how
Do you imagine? I
expensive
can't imagine the
it is.
mods
Pay
on
for this game.
the remake. Oh God.
They're going to be bringing back the block arms. 100%.
I was just trying to think of that. Like,
it's just going to be a demake mod that
Yeah.
reverts back to.
Oh yes.
this I was trying to think of like a hyper realistic looking Cloud with the blocky character model.
Can't wait.
But it's talking about the same thing about the goofiness and the stuff, or in the main story elements was Red 13's grandfather. Like that's totally goofy and weird, but it's like that's a vital character in terms of like some of the story or how they get to from one place to another. You could easily write that out and do a different thing, I guess. But like how I guess how would you think that they would treat that? Because he's their kind of main go-to into kind of discovering what's happening in the world, and he's the historian of the world.
Yeah, no, true.
Like you said,
Yeah.
what you've been saying is that Final Fantasy VII is it's got so much humor and quirkiness to it.
This
Thankfully-
game's crazy.
It is pretty crazy, but thankfully they won't be getting to that kind of the finer points of Red 13 for a while. So
It's
thankfully,
true.
I don't think we have to speculate because I haven't got a clue actually how they're going to treat that.
Because he's got a pretty cool. Well, I guess that's the same thing as how much they're going to leave in, how much they're going to leave out. If you want to do, like the character missions, pretty much, like for each companion, because like Red 13's got some. He's got like
quite an
option.
extensive background. to be
Yeah,
honest,
he's got
as
like
well.
an optional kind of background about like his family and all that kind of stuff, and it's like that's stuff that's really cool, but that's also totally unnecessary if you're trying to get a game out.
Yeah.
So then same with like Yuffie and.
Red 13 will be an interesting. I'm curious to see. He's such an interesting character from a design perspective, being quadrupedal and being a wolf, or just a dog. This creature that's so vastly different from everybody else. I remembering now that his English voice in Advent Children was kind of like a really deep, sort of gravelly, wise sort of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I kind of.
He had like a older Japanese man's voice. I don't remember the dub though. For him, for his voice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
the voice acting thing is interesting too, because I, to be honest, I was really surprised that we were hearing that trailer in English. Like, what world is
like,
this?
that's like the
experience. Yeah, exactly. I imagine a lot of that is placeholder still.
Oh, absolutely. You
who
could
is
see in
it?
the
Who's
way
yeah, the models didn't match at all.
the mouths didn't match
Yeah.
up at all, really.
But Cloud and Barrett, those are two voices where it's like you don't want to have them be in English in a trailer unless you're ready to have them be in English. Like, we're okay if Jesse or Biggs or Wedge, their voices change, whatever. But it's like the first time you have Cloud speak, I guess it wouldn't surprise me if whoever those voice actors are, that is who they've picked. But
Yeah.
then who's?
I mean, the
larger guy, is
the
that
one who did.
Biggs? Is the fat one, the rotund one?
I thought he said Wedge in the. I can't remember.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I think he
Yeah, I
called
think
him.
Wedge
Yeah.
is the rotund one,
Yeah.
His voice was the one that was like really weird in the trailer.
Yeah,
like,
it was-
almost like robotically strange. I'm like, okay, that's
kinda out of
clearly
place.
not.
But the voice,
yeah.
I don't know the name of the actor, but the voice actor who was Barrett he's a very prominent anime
Cowboy
dub,
Bebop, isn't it?
like for English. He's in that. He's in so many. Like he's in everything that you see in any kind of anime dubs.
I didn't realize that we knew who they were already, or did you just recognize?
I just recognized it from here. I don't know
yeah,
his name, but he's in.
I
he's
think we
in
do
so
know, yeah. I think the guy who's doing Cloud's voice has done Cloud's voice for a while.
He sounded like Advent Children Cloud. Like
I think it
he
is.
sounded exactly like that. So it's same with Dissidia and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, I would for sure, and I'm guessing that's most of the cast. It was just interesting that the choice for Barrett wasn't the same as the one in Advent Children. So I mean, that was just an interesting thing. But yeah, so I mean, I would like to see how many of those people are going to be the same, how many are different. I'm sure the vast majority of people aren't going to care or even notice once the game comes out if they're the same as Advent Children or not. And also it's been 10 years, so I'd be surprised.
Yeah, the cool thing is that this is one aspect of the game where they're less likely to disappoint people because there just weren't voices in the original.
That's true, yeah.
They do have some freedom, some artistic liberty there.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to think of how much Sephiroth talked in Advent Children. Well, he talks in Kingdom Hearts, too, so they have the Kingdom Hearts voice actor that they could use.
Yeah, in Kingdom Hearts 2, it is the same voice actor for all of the Final Fantasy VII crossover characters.
Yeah, and that was a good pick.
I think
in one it was Lance Bass from NSYNC, but in 2 it was.
I think Kevin James should voice Sephiroth, to be honest. Give it the Paul Blart treatment, proper.
Oh,
all right,
God.
well, you've officially disqualified yourself from any further Final Fantasy VII.
So Ernest and I are in the background.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You guys can go watch Advent Children.
You're on the bench.
Or Paul Blart Mock Up too, if you want to.
But yeah, the trailer looked amazing. I thought it was a great showing. It was a great surprise to have for that. There's a lot to go for, but
actually, and I heard as well, even when Cloud jumps on the train, it's all kind of in real time. You can move the camera around, and it's not just like a little scripted kind of thing, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, that's going to be exciting to see. And same with like the battle system, how the bosses are going to be treated and all that stuff. We'll just have to wait and see on that. But
a lot more questions than there are answers.
Yeah,
best moment of the keynote for me for sure. I would say Ni no Kuni is great, a very close second, but like this was kind of
combat,
the highest energy moment actually. Yeah.
So
that was cool too, but
I guess the moral of the story for now for the podcast is that just don't freak out just yet on things that you're worried about.
Time to freak out. Don't worry. There'll be plenty. There will be missteps.
Yeah,
I guarantee.
There's going to be a lot, but
in
terms of the episodic thing,
we'll talk about it again. So
that's true.
I'll be ready.
But for the episodic thing, there's a lot more positive going for that motivation than there are negatives. But it all depends on how they deal with it and how they deal with the pricing in the future, how big the games are going to be. There's too many variables right now to even worry about it. Mm-hmm. Just let that go forward and go with it.
Yeah, happy with the art style. Corneo's in it.
Yep. You can be happy to see cross-dressing Cloud in the future.
Get my silk dress back on, my blonde wig, my sexy perfume, which you make with the digestive, of course.
Yeah.
And a bit of makeup.
Oh my God, I totally forgot about that scene with all like the naked men or like the muscle-bound men. And they want to take a bath with you and the.
Yep.
Oh God. I remember playing. Yeah, I remember playing through it recently and just like thinking about how that was. Like, oh my God, I can't even imagine the kind of scene. I do hope they keep that kind of quirkiness in it, but
and take this to the bank. Marlene will be more in it, a lot more prominently, and so will Zach.
Zach for sure, yeah.
On that note,
so thank you guys for this robust conversation.
Rotund, like wedge.
Rotund
or
like
big.
wedge.
It's wedge though. I think it is wedge.
I think it's wedge.
Should be wedge. It is wedge.
Biggs is too obvious.
Yeah. See, I keep forgetting because in Final Fantasy X they're just like two carbon copies of each other, so it's like I kind of forget which is the rotund one.
But yeah,
I think this is wedge. It is wedge.
But this is good conversation on this, and I think we covered a lot of things that a lot of people were concerned about, and probably raised more concerns in our conversation by thinking about it more.
It's only because we care.
That's true. Well, all of us except for Ernest.
I care.
There's time for that. It's only $10, Ernest. You have the disc. You have the disc. Actually,
I watched the Advent Children Special Edition. It's whatever extra. I know what happens.
You don't
I'll
know.
play
You
it.
don't know.
I don't. I actually don't, because a lot of the conversation, I was like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
all I know is about is my Yuffies and my Vincents.
Yo, my Yuffie and my Cloud Striffs and all that stuff.
So Ernest is going to go play Final Fantasy VII. We're going to have...
I'm not going to go play it. We mean there's a roughly 40% chance he'll play it before the remake comes out.
Yeah. Is that a bet? Are we taking bets here?
Interesting.
Do we have our first show bet? Do we have our first PlayStation Fix Put it on the board.
Yeah, what are we gonna bet? What do we got to figure out? What we bet?
First and only Final Fantasy game I ever completed was Final Fantasy 13, and a big reason why is because I had a friend who was studying abroad. He was studying abroad for a year in Japan, and he said, "I am going to play that game and beat it before you. I bet you won't even beat it. I'll finish it before I come back." And I was like, "Oh, that's a bet you're on," and I finished it.
I don't know what the forfeit will be, but if you don't pay it by E3.
My conviction is so strong on this that I'm going to put my bet on the board, and I'm going to say Ernest does not finish FF7 before the remake comes out.
Before the remake.
The remake? That's that's at least a year, right?
I just don't think
you have to use...
I don't think you're going to play it from start to finish. I think you're going to be just
the remake
like me.
Is going to be like 2 years.
Go,
2.5. You got like 2.5 years to play Final Fantasy VII.
And you can't play the PS4 version because.
Am I allowed to use a guide?
Yes.
No, not if you're not
for the 2.5 year.
Not for the 2.5 one.
Well, man, what?
I'll see you at E3, Ernest. There's the marker. Okay. I'll have it finished by E3. You have Final Fantasy VII by E3. If we don't, there'll be some forfeit. I don't know. It might be beer induced. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Beer induced forfeit, and then my bet goes on the board. Yes.
All right. So we'll see if Ernest can finish Final Fantasy VII by E3.
My God.
All right. So this has been episode 8 of PlayStation Fix, talking exclusively on Final Fantasy VII. We're going to have a lot more to talk about in the future. Don't you worry on this game.
It's a multi-part series.
So yeah, it is a multi-part series.
Or episodic, if you will.
Yeah, but thank you all for joining me in this, as we decided, rotund conversation. So if you guys have any comments or concerns or additions to what we talked about, please leave them in the comments below, and feel free to share them, because then we can get an opportunity to address them in the future. Because not only is this a conversational podcast for us, it's a conversation with you all, and we want you part of it.
That we do.
All right. Well, thanks you all for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
High five. Great job, guys.